October the 22nd, 2018. Today we're going to be talking about parallel and perpendicular lines and how to find their equations. Okay. So when you look at this graph, which lines look like they're parallel? Very good. A and B are parallel. What can you tell me about their slopes? What's the slope of A? They are positive. What's the slope of A? One over 2. What about B? 1 over 2. So what do we notice about the slopes of parallel lines? Very good. They're the same. So that's one of the big things we need to remember for today. This is going to be line C. Kind of hard to tell. So let's make this one line C and let's make this one line D. The slope of line C is, what is it? Very good. Up 2 over 1 from one point to the next. And then the slope of line D is down 2 and over 1. They are, but see, like it's kind of hard to tell because some people weren't sure if this one was C or this one was C. So I put C on both ends so we know that which one's C and which one's D. Okay. Which lines look like they're perpendicular? Meaning they cross, they intersect. C and D, these two are perpendicular. Lines that intersect are not necessarily perpendicular. They're very specific lines that intersect at what kind of angle? At a right angle. So it means that they make a perfect degree, 90 degree angle or a perfect corner. It's going to be what? Okay. D and A and D and B both make a 90 degree angle when they intersect. What do you notice about the slope of D versus A and B? One is positive, one is negative. What else? Very good. They're reciprocals of each other. Yes, it looks like they're flipped, but that's reciprocals of each other. So that's the big thing we need to remember today for perpendicular lines. That if they're parallel, they're the same. If they're perpendicular, one is positive, one is negative, and they're reciprocals of each other. 1 over 2, 2 over 1. All right, we've compared the lines. Let's fill in this little table. So we said that if they're parallel, what kind of slopes are they going to be? If they're parallel, very good, equal. So if this is 2/3, a slope of a line parallel to it would be 2/3. If this is -4, this has to be -4. Pretty much they have to be the same slope. If they're parallel, they have to be the same slope. So this is -1/4, and if this is 2, then the slope of the parallel line has to also be 2. They have to be the same. What about perpendicular lines? If one is 2/3, the other one's going to be 3 over 2, but we're forgetting one thing. Negative, right? They have to be opposite signs. So this one is a negative for the reciprocal, and opposite sign would be what? Positive, yes, and positive 1 over 4. The reciprocal, don't forget, their opposite sign, putting sign in parentheses, and reciprocals of each other. So this is -1 over 4. The opposite reciprocal or perpendicular slope would be positive 4 over 1. If this is 2, the perpendicular line will have what kind of slope? -1 over 2. Very good. So again, what we just stated is that lines that are parallel have slopes that are slopes that are, we can put equal or the same, whichever one is easiest. I'm just going to put the same. Then lines that are perpendicular have slopes that are opposite, and I'm going to put in parentheses signs, meaning one is positive, one is negative. So opposite and reciprocal. Don't get. Remember, we have to flip it over, turn it over. So parallel lines are the same. Perpendicular lines are opposite sign and reciprocal. Okay, so remembering that, let's answer some questions in the back. Determine if the given lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So we look, and they already said equal to y, so all we have to worry about is the slope. The slope is the one with the x. Are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? One is negative, one is positive. One is 1 over 2, the other one is 2, and it's a whole number, it's 2 over 1. So they are? Perpendicular is correct. What about number 2? We have 3 and we have negative 3. So are they reciprocals of each other? Very good. They have to be both, right? They have to be opposite and reciprocal to be perpendicular. Since they're just opposite signs, then and that's it, they have to be neither because they're not reciprocals of each other. What about number 3? If there's nothing in front of the x, there is a 1. So here's my slope and here's my slope. Very good. Parallel because they're exactly the same. Also, you can always graph them. Parallel is really easy to see when they're parallel. Perpendicular, not so easy. Sometimes you can kind of tell, but if they get really big, it's kind of hard to tell. It's easier just to go by the slope. Alright, so this is the part where a lot of people are struggling, so we need to pay attention. We're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through the given point, meaning this one, and is parallel to the graph of the given equation. So parallel to this one. One thing we need to remember is that they're parallel, so they're going to have the same slope. So in order for me to get a line, or write a line that is parallel to this one, I need to know what the slope of this line is. Well, I cannot tell the way it's written because it's not in slope-intercept form. It's in standard form. If you don't remember what standard form, can you copy this on top of it, please? AX plus BY equals C. This is standard form. I'm going to show you a shortcut right now to get the slope from standard. But what we're used to is this next part, solving for y, where we would subtract a 5x from both sides. And that will leave me with a negative 2y equals 8 minus 5x. Then, in order to solve for y, I still need to get rid of that negative 2. It's touching, so that's multiplication. So we always do the opposite to get rid of it. Divide by a negative 2. If I divide on one side, I divide on the other side, but everything. So y equals negative 4. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so this is positive 5 halves x. Now that I've solved for y, now I know what my slope is. What is my slope? It's always a 1 with the x, 5 over 2. So first thing I needed to do there is find the slope, and we did 5 over 2. Now let me show you the shortcut in case you don't want to have to solve for y. This is the shortcut. I'm going to put a little star over here. Whatever's in front of the x is called the a. So if you get the negative, oh, here I'm going to put m equals, the negative of whatever is there in front of the x, so this case 5, and then you divide it by whatever's in place of the b, which is 2, or right with the y. Oops, sorry, b. That will give you the slope. And you don't have to do all this. So look, this is what I mean. Whatever's in front of the x is called the a. That's a 5, and make it negative. If it was negative, then you would make it positive. Divide by whatever's in front of the y, or whichever is your b. B here is a minus 2, so you would divide by minus 2, or negative 2. We know that a negative divided by a negative is a... So if you don't want to do all the steps in solving, you can use this shortcut. My last period had a hard time using the shortcut, so maybe it's easier to just solve for y and find the slope. Alright, once we find the slope, you're going to go step 2. Since they give us a point, this is our x1, y1. Then we can use what we learned on Friday, the point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, where x1 comes from the x-coordinate of the point that they give me. Y1 comes from the y-coordinate of the point that they give me. And then m is just the slope that we find up here. In step 1, that's what's going to go in place of m. Please copy it. Alright, so then I'm going to write y minus what? 9 equals m, and what is our m? 5/2 x minus 2. Then after this, we just have to solve for y. Don't forget to distribute the 5/2. 5/2 times x is just 5/2 x. 5/2 times negative 2, put a little 1 underneath, multiply the top, multiply the bottom. That'll give me a negative 10 over 2. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Or just use your calculator. 5/2 times negative 2 will give you negative 5. And last thing there is to get rid of this minus 9 by doing what? Plus 9. Ready to do one side of the equals, we do to the other side. The 5 is a like term, so that's where we put the 9. Alright, now in this next part, we're doing the same thing, but we need to find a line that is perpendicular to that. So the steps are going to be the same. First step is to find the slope, but be careful, because we know that the slope of perpendicular lines are opposite sign and reciprocal of each other. Reciprocal. Okay? So this one's easy because it's already in slope-intercept form. What is the slope here? 2 over 9. What is the opposite reciprocal slope of 2 over 9? Very good. That's what we need to start with. We need to find the correct slope, negative 9 over 2. Over here, we didn't have to worry about that. As long as we found it, it was the same slope because they were parallel. Here, though, we find it, but we have to switch it to the opposite sign and reciprocal. Step 2, use your point slope formula from Friday and substitute in your x value. Excuse me, darn, I highlighted the wrong one. x1 and y1. Oof, as you can't even tell, that's blue. Well, I highlighted kind of wrong. So this was supposed to be our x1 and our y1. And then our m comes from the previous, our slope. So this is y minus negative 13 equals m, our slope, negative 9/2. Open parentheses, x minus 6. Please don't start solving or do anything till you get rid of this minus and negative. When we have minus and negative, switch that to plus 13. And then I can start solving. That just throws off a lot of people. Just take care of that from the beginning so you don't get confused. Then we're going to distribute. If you have your calculator, good. If you're doing this at home and don't have a calculator that can do fractions, then it's negative 9/2 times negative 6 over 1. Put that whole number over 1 and multiply across. Gives me a positive 54 and gives me a 2. 9 times 6 is 54. Negative times the negative is positive. 2 times 1 is 2. That simplifies to give me a 27. So that's how you do it by hand, but you could just use a calculator and multiply it. So negative 9/2 times x is negative 9/2. Just leave it as a fraction. And then this is going to give me a positive 27, so plus 27. And then lastly, we get rid of that 13 by doing what? Subtracting the 13. I do to one side, to the other, to the like term, the 27. So minus 13. Y equals negative 9/2 x 14 is correct. You can always check it with the calculator, so if you want to check it out and graph it. Let's take a pause and let's graph it. Alright, so page 99 is our homework. The first part, you just have to determine if it's parallel, perpendicular, neither. If there's nothing in front of the x, there is a 1. Okay. For number 5, watch out. One is vertical, one is horizontal. If you're struggling a lot, then graph it. But if you are going to graph it, you're going to have to zoom out because it doesn't show the y equals 9 when you graph it at first. So go menu, window, and then zoom out. Now this part is where people are struggling. I need you to remember that perpendicular lines have opposite and reciprocal slopes. Okay. So on number 7, to find the slope, you can use the little equation we had a star in, negative a divided by b. So a is whatever's in front of the x, that's the a, and then b is whatever's in front of the y, that's the y. Let me zoom in a little bit. Oh, it's not letting me zoom in. It's okay. So that's going to be negative 2, and then b is already negative because of that minus 7. What's a negative 2 divided by a negative 7? Yeah, just leave it positive 2 over 7. So that's our slope. Once we find our slope, then we have to find the perpendicular slope. What is going to be the perpendicular slope? Of 2 over 7. Negative 7 over 2. So this is the slope we're going to use. Remember, they have to be opposite and reciprocal slopes when it's perpendicular. Then step 2, y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. You're going to sub in your point. This is x1, y1. And then this is your m right here. Then you'll solve for y, and that'll be your answer. You can always graph it to check yourself. Be careful on this bottom part. Here you don't have to do opposite reciprocal since they're parallel. Just remember that the slopes are the same. So same slope. You don't have to change it. Just find the slope. Okay, you can either use this little negative 9 over divided by b, negative 8 divided by b, or solve for y and whatever is with the x in front of it. That is your answer. If there's nothing in front of the x, there is a 1. So just watch out for that. Alright, that's your homework.